All right. So, this is a drawing that I had started drawing, and an artist friend actually asked me to draw this. So, I say, yeah, I got you, man. If you want a commission, all you have to do is contact me. All my information is in my bio. The best way is probably to email me. I do have a lot of commissions that I do, but I definitely put you on the list, and I look forward to hearing what you want me to draw. So I had already drawn the character pencil-wise or sketch-wise in front of my homeboy, my friend. And so he said Nexus is who he wanted. So we're kind of starting at the point where I am actually inking. So I went on and erased what I had drawn. And now what I'm doing is going over the head first. And when you erase, make sure that you erase it in a point where you actually can still see your pencil marks, but maybe no one else can. I mean, that's a good way to kind of explain it. All right, now I'm getting the hand, making sure you got the feathered look for the fingers to give it a more realistic look. Got forearm. Now working in the bicep area, which is connected to the chest. So, and once again, kind of talk about how the silhouette, and I learned that from Jim Lee and J. Scott Campbell, that the silhouette is very important, making sure that silhouette looks like you want it to look. And if you look at the artists I talked about, if you look at the silhouettes of their characters, the silhouette is pretty simple. And that to me is very attractive. I believe also artists like John Byrne has a pretty simple and dynamic silhouette. And then all the complicated shading and other things are done within that silhouette. So, as you can see, I've outlined the character, and that's the silhouette right there. Nexus is actually a character that I remember seeing the comic books for, and I may have a few comic books of Nexus, but I wouldn't consider myself a Nexus fan. So actually, I was happy that my friend said that this was a character that he really looked at and liked. As I mentioned before, once the silhouette is down, then you can start adding the detail that you see and notice on the inside. So once again, I've already done the pencils, so I'm really, and I don't want to say I'm tracing, because I am still thinking during this inking stage and making alterations, because everything is relative to whatever's down on the paper now. So as I look at what's on the paper, I'm saying, okay, I saw what I did for the drawing. How do I want to interpret that with my inks? I'm outlining where my darks will go. I've decided what part of the costume will be dark and what part will be light. And once again, a lot of the decisions were made during the penciling stage, excuse me, but I'm still thinking. But the thinking goes a lot quicker with all the other pencils already down. And really, it's a different type of thinking, because now the thinking is, how can this best be interpreted in black and white? And that to me is always important. I would say I got my anatomy from John Byrne and Jim Lee primarily, but there are a lot of artists that I look at when it comes to anatomy. I would say primarily image style artists, or maybe image style rendering is more appropriate. I've often thought about doing a comic book with just this outline style. I've seen artists do that. I know that would take a lot of time off the drawing of the actual image. Now I'm using a paintbrush to fill in certain spaces. Again, I am thinking. That's why I'm separating these shadows. I'm saying, okay, some feathering will go on at this point. So I'm looking and I'm thinking, I'm figuring this out, making sure I stay within the lines that I want to stay within. And the misconception is I'm trying to be perfect, but honestly, I still can be loose, even with the shading in of these particular parts. It adds more life to the drawing when it's a little loose. And also, I know that I'm going to tighten up at the end to give it that polished look. So it's not that it will stay loose, it's just that I will be coming back to tighten up certain parts. Got those thigh-high boots. Got the lightning over one of the shoulders. A lot of people ask me, man, what happens when you make a mistake? Well, as I draw, I always make mistakes, or I see things that I would change or wanted to change. You just kind of continue on. I once heard an artist say, the artists that are the most successful, they know how to cover their mistakes well. So I found that to be a pretty good piece of advice. muscles just kind of overlap. So I do that. Because another question I get all the time is, how do you know where the muscles are? Well, when I used to go to the grocery store with my mother, I would always go to the magazine section and simply look up muscle books. That was part of my education as to getting down my anatomy. And it wasn't knowing specific muscles. What it was doing was understanding that surface anatomy looked a certain way. So I wasn't concerned with the name of each individual muscle. I was more concerned with surface anatomy. Collarbone right there. All right, it's FaceTime. Not to be confused with Apple. All right, so now that I've gotten some darks in, I'm doing some details now. And this is what gives it the life that I talked about, the feathering. The hatching and cross hatching. And this is, I'll say what I got from Image, but I think Arthur Adams is a forefather of this. I believe that John Byrne definitely is a forefather of this. Neil Adams. And just recently, I've come to realize how much of an influence that oh man, I can't remember his name right now. Oh man, one of the legends in the game. But there are a lot of artists out there who have contributed to how I draw and how comic books have been drawn by different people. Feathering through, making sure that rib cage looks like it's coming in and giving it the type of definition that I wish I had. Trying to make a distinction between the various parts of the costume. Don't want to render too much. Put on the cast shadow right there on the chest. Make it pop out. That's the feathering on the chest right there. And what this does when you feather is round out and allows you, as Jim Lee says, to establish a gray and fade from one value to the next. Connecting those muscles and making sure the shoulder and the chest muscles are aligned. So that's where that detail comes from that people ask about. Oh man, it's so detailed. But again, once the silhouette is done, and the silhouette is actually real simple, in some respect, the interior part of the muscles, even though people say, man, your anatomy is so good, the silhouette itself is what really allows for the image to look good. The muscles just kind of become an add-on. Getting the forearm tight, I'm looking at it. In the knee, and I've changed up how I do the knee, and it comes from observation. I just started looking at people in real life and saying to myself, I don't like how I do my knees. So you can look not only at other comic book artists, but you can look at real life as well to determine, and probably the best way to pick your own or create your own anatomy. And one thing that I do on these YouTube sketches that is different from how I actually draw in real life is I attempt to keep the paper as stationary as possible. Whereas when I'm drawing actually from a regular, say I'm drawing at a convention, then I'm just moving the papers as often as I need to. Believe it or not, it adds to the speed by which I'm able to do whatever I need to do. And by keeping it stationary, it really kind of slows you down, because you have to draw in a somewhat uncomfortable manner, or at least a manner that you were not used to, and I was not used to drawing stationary. I've always been told you can turn the paper whenever you need to. So the image looks pretty good. And now it's time for what my professor used to call a calligraphy line. And what is a calligraphy line? It is a line that varies in width. So that's what I call it. And I got this directly from somebody like a John Byrne. He would definitely have this calligraphy line outlining his characters. And to me, is beautiful. It just takes it from an amateur sketch to a professional sketch. You got the details inside. You start out with a good silhouette. You've established your anatomy however you wanted it. And then that calligraphy line puts everything in place. Thick and thin, thick and thin. My basic rule is to follow the light source and have the thickest part of the line be directly related to the light source. However, sometimes that changes based on how close something is, or it changes based on if I want to insinuate something. And also, if you find that the outline is not working when it's thin, or you find you need to change some things, this allows you an opportunity to tighten up the outline as well. And I hope you can see the difference that happens between a real thin, consistent outline and then this calligraphy line. A lot of cartoons have a calligraphy line as well. Del Keown was very good at it too. Very much a protege, I believe, of John Byrne. Phenomenal artist. A lot of his interior lines were also calligraphy type lines. And Image in general did that with their hatching. I like to keep my hatching pretty consistent. Interior lines and detail lines. Dave Finch is another one who has that image style that varies his feathering as well. So I'm trying not to be lazy. That's what this is right here. And so what I mean by that is adding background. This is a cosmic character, so the background that I had thought of was like just some cosmic looking shapes, and this is a little Ron Benjamin coming out of me too. Just kind of just draw stuff. Ron Benjamin is a beast. If you don't know these names, you need to check them out. They are phenomenal artists. I learned from all of them. Learned from all of them. And as I said, most of them come from the image school, but there are some. Okay. I'm establishing where I won't say light source, but I guess you could say light source, but everything is coming from the hand. So that's why I put my fingertip in the center of the fist and had all the radiation come from that point. And now what I'm doing is I have outlined these cosmic energy rock formations, and I'm still using the same vanishing point. With those. And again, I'm not trying to move the paper, so a lot of this is not natural. One thing, when you draw, your wrist has a tendency to do a crescent on the inside. So the way I'm drawing right now, see how my hand is going? That's a natural movement. So whatever these things are, this burst of energy, I got them outlined, so I'm just following the vanishing point. And you know, it doesn't have to be anything. It doesn't have to be anything recognizable. It's a cosmic character. It's just sort of, what is that? Is it clouds? Is it? Oh man, my alarm went off. I didn't know if it messed. I think it may have messed up something. I don't know. But anyway, I'm still going. So the reason I've done my vanishing point in my fist, because those lines will lead your eye toward my fist. And it unconsciously, even though the random black splots don't give you direction, the actual lines will. They will make your eye go a certain way. And so those are the things I'm considering when I thought about doing these lines toward this vanishing point. And so this is when the way I'm drawing is getting unnatural. This is where I would turn the paper. Because the hand doesn't naturally flow this way. It's a much easier way for your hand to flow. But for the sake of this picture, and the sake of what I'm doing, so we went from unnatural to even more unnatural up here at the top. Not undoable. So you see I changed up. Still unnatural. It would be better to move the paper, or easier, I'll say, to move the paper. And believe it or not, you lose a few seconds here and there drawing in an unnatural way. Okay. Since I've established these lines, now this is where I can do that burst of energy. I can't remember. Did I turn the paper on this part? Okay. Giving it that wave up and down, not just consistent, but the randomness. I managed to do it without turning the paper. Cool. All right. Nexus, ladies and gentlemen. The last thing you do is your name. But make sure you do your name and make sure you do your date. My father always told me that.
Leron-mcadoo found joy in drawing superheroes, but he was an illiterate third grader. So suddenly his mother said she would not buy another comic book until he could read them. McAdoo rose above being afraid of words to getting paid for words. Now he uses words to get people Mctivated about their own superpower He drew strength from drawing. This is Comicbook Bold. To see his comic commissions and comic art, go to pinterest.com at that hip hop and select leron-mcadoo-art.